The Trump campaign is laying down the groundwork for contesting the election outcome by filing lawsuits in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Georgia. His team is also calling for a recount of votes in Wisconsin. So let us bring in CBS News campaign reporter Cara Korte, who's been covering voting this entire campaign cycle, so we can break down what all of these lawsuits mean. As soon as I see these razor-thin margins, I know that lawyers are going to be busy, because that happens just normally when the count is very close. But here, a close count is the difference between who's going to be a resident of the White House and who's not. So let's begin in Wisconsin, where the Trump campaign says that it's filed a recount request. Is the campaign within its rights to do so?
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie. There's a lot to cover. Starting with Wisconsin is a good place. Yes, the Trump campaign is completely within their rights to call for a recount in Wisconsin. Now, we should note they actually haven't taken official steps to do so yet, and there is a specific timeline in which they have to do that. They've just put out a warning sign saying that it's what they want to do. Wisconsin is a state that does not have an automatic recount threshold, so essentially anyone at any time can call for a recount. Recall that 4 years ago, Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein actually called for a recount in Wisconsin. They did that there, and it didn't change the results in any tangible way. So there's two takeaways from that. One is that Wisconsin knows how to do recounts. That is a good thing. They can do it expeditiously. They've done it once before without any drama. And the second thing to take away there is that when we saw this happen 4 years ago, results did not change in a tangible way. And again, that margin right now is looking at about 20,000 plus votes with Biden ahead of President Trump. And there's no reason to believe that a recount is going to resurface or change that many votes. That's a lot there, Anne-Marie.
All right, so the Trump campaign also has launched a series of legal challenges in multiple states. We're going to start in Pennsylvania, where there were legal challenges even before the election. So what is the campaign trying to do in Pennsylvania, and what evidence is the campaign offering to support its claims?
This has been an ongoing trend. We've talked about this many times before. There have been hundreds of election-related lawsuits filed in the run-up to this election all over the country. But when we zero in on this Pennsylvania matter, what the Trump campaign is looking at is they are trying to stop the count that is going on in certain counties in Pennsylvania. The reason why they want to do that is because before mail-in ballots were beginning to count, we of course saw the president ahead of Joe Biden there. So the Trump campaign and the GOP erroneously claim that these ballots, which were casted on time, which were casted legally, which were casted by Pennsylvania registered voters, should not count. They really can't explain why. They throw out alarming words like fraud and irregularities, but there's been no track record of these problems, Anne-Marie. In Pennsylvania alone, the campaign has essentially already litigated this case, where months ago they tried to get their campaign staffers into more polling places to be able to watch the polls that go on. Remember, that system already exists. There are official poll watchers right now in every state who are watching this process go on. But the Trump campaign, when they filed this months ago, that case was actually tried by a Trump-appointed judge who asked the GOP to provide evidence of this fraud, of these irregularities, why the policy should be changed. And the case ended up being thrown out because of the Trump campaign's inadequacies in providing proof. So they did not have it months ago. It does not appear, if they have it today, they haven't shown anything yet. So again, it's kind of a signal of these lawsuits, Anne-Marie, are happening in a fashion of reaction, right? This wasn't happening on Election Day or weeks before, saying, oh, we just saw this incident where, this event happened. We never heard anything about that. This is all after the fact. So again, if they've got proof, I don't know why they would be sitting on it at this point.
Yeah, the thing is that people are going to watch the margins ebb and flow, and particularly in Pennsylvania, you have really big counties like Philadelphia County that tend to lean overwhelmingly blue, and take a long time to count, and so you might see the margins change. It doesn't mean that there's anything nefarious or funny business going on. It takes a while to count these ballots, and we must remember that the president has had his sights on Pennsylvania and Philadelphia in particular for a long time. Who could forget the debate? Bad things happen in Philadelphia. We certainly haven't forgotten that in Philadelphia. But let's move on to Michigan now. Joe Biden, CBS News is projecting that Joe Biden will win Michigan, but the Trump campaign has also filed a lawsuit to stop the count of absentee ballots in that state. Michigan's Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, was on Red and Blue last night, and here is what she had to say in response to this lawsuit.
It's a frivolous lawsuit, and it's really an example of the type of misinformation designed to sow seeds of doubt among our voters about the integrity of our elections process, which I fully stand behind. From the moment the polls opened yesterday, when our poll workers and election workers were able to begin tabulating ballots, up until now, they have been following every rule, meticulously counting every vote, doing so transparently with people from both sides of the aisle, both looking on and working the process. So I'm very confident in our work. I'm very confident in our processes, and I'm very confident that we're going to continue counting the vote until every vote is counted in Michigan.
The Secretary of State expressed confidence that all the votes would be counted correctly. Can you walk us through the process of just how election officials actually makes sure that happens?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, the reason why Secretary Benson is confident is because elections don't just happen willy-nilly, right? We have been preparing for this for months. Again, rules have been altered, changed. This election, especially when it comes to the rules, has been more attention paid to it than any election thus far. Now, how does this counting process work? Voting is a multi-step process that is slightly different in every state. Counting is the same way. These officials that are getting together, they have been trained. They have taken oaths of office in order to execute this count properly and without any kind of suspicion. The reason why it's taking so long is a good thing, Anne-Marie. It's because they're doing it correctly. They're trying to make no errors here. Now, there's the counting process, and then to ensure that counting process, there's something known as the canvassing process. And in that process is the validation of vote totals. There are audits that are done. There's certification that's done, and that process goes into December. Because again, thankfully, many Americans are voting. We're seeing that there's this historic level of turnout, and every vote is being counted, every vote is being looked at. And so it's a careful, painstaking process that takes time, and that's a good thing.
That is definitely a good thing, and people need to remember when we're talking about mail-in ballots too. It's not just looking at the person or the candidate that was voted on. It's also looking at the validity of that ballot. Do the signatures match? All these sort of things before they can even sort of look at how the vote is going. So that all takes time. Now we're going to go down to Georgia. Another lawsuit in Georgia. What's happening there?
Yeah, again, this is an example, Anne-Marie, of where you see the Trump campaign reacting to something. Just like in Pennsylvania, they're trying to stop the vote there. It's because it's one of those states where before mail-in balloting came in, we saw a much sizable lead for the president. And now that mail-in ballots, which across the country favor Democrat participation, the GOP is now trying to stop the vote, stop those legally submitted ballots from coming in. Again, they haven't really explained why. They're using flashy language, alarming language, if it is true. But again, they haven't really been able to provide any solid proof. And I think one thing that you want to point out in Georgia and all of these things, Anne-Marie, is the timing of it, because it's reactive, it's not proactive, and again, just like in Pennsylvania, it's kind of the same song and dance. So we haven't seen any tangible examples of why they want these ballots to not be counted.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to listen to the campaign and Trump supporters demand that some ballots not be counted in some areas, and then sort of demand that other ballots be counted, count the ballots, and which brings me to Nevada. The Republican Party and the Trump campaign say that they are investigating thousands of voter complaints. What do you know about what these alleged complaints include and who is filing them?
This is an example of how the campaign has put out these alarming statements that they're seeing, quote unquote, thousands of irregularities. We know why they're saying that. Or I should say, we know the reason for their explanation for that number, Anne-Marie, and it's because the GOP has set up websites across the country for voters to report incidents of these kind of irregularities, whether as a voter you saw something you didn't think that was going on, or you saw something that you didn't think was kosher, or as a poll watcher you saw something that you didn't think was kosher. But the thing is, Anne-Marie, is that these are invalidated, unverified statistics that the Trump campaign is providing. We have no idea, when they say thousands, we have no idea where those complaints are coming from. We don't know the validity of those things. You can go on to that website right now, sitting in Pennsylvania, Anne-Marie, and say that you're a Nevada voter who experienced an irregularity. And again, of these 1,000 complaints, the Trump campaign has not shared a single one that supposedly exists. So we are treating these things with the absolute utmost amount of caution, because just like in the lawsuits, the Trump campaign has been asked to provide proof of these incidences. Yesterday in Nevada, a flashy headline of thousands of complaints, but no actual evidence to verify it.
Yeah, it's all good information to share. Just because you file a lawsuit doesn't mean it's valid. Just because you appeal it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Cara, thanks for giving us a little context there.